Hello, everyone. Hope you had a good lunch and all settled in. So it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Yunyao Li for the next talk. She's the Director of Machine Learning at Adobe Experience Platform, where she leads AI strategy, transforming enterprise personalization and innovation. Today, she will deliver the talk on declarative to generative, building and querying enterprise knowledge bases. So let's welcome the speaker, and the podium is yours. Thank you.
So we need 1 minute to set up.
No. Just share screen.
Just 10 seconds. Very efficient.
Good afternoon, everyone. So it's my pleasure to talk about our work in the past couple of decades. So this is not going to be a talk all about LLM, but also talk about what happened before LLM. Of course, LLM is everywhere. I think if you look at the talks right in the past couple of days and all the upcoming talks in ACL, people are going to talk about LLM all the time. It's the same in Adobe. So we use LLM for marketers to help them better understand the data, better understand their product. We're able to support them to answer questions like, what are the audiences grow by more than 20% in the past months, and also about some of the other aspects of their marketing campaign and so on. So as you can see here, right, the kind of question they are able to ask are fairly precise and fairly complex. However, I want to point out, to be able to support complex questions and provide precise answers, not something new. This is something we have been working on for a long time. So if we look back a few years, around 2017, we have worked on an application that enables lawyers to understand the contract, how to be able to understand how this term compared to the contract of another term, and so on. And if I look at a few bucks earlier, we have also done the same thing in the financial domain, where we allow the financial analysts to be able to compare the different assets, look into financial reports in a great detail, and be able to compare industry APIs and so on. In fact, over 10 years earlier, we have enabled the entire internet in IBM to be able to answer questions about whatever provided on the internet, right? So from per diem policy to benefits and so on. So overall, right, regardless whether we are using LLM or what we have done before, if we look underneath this kind of precision-oriented system, we can basically think about two phases. The first phase is that we extract and learn from diverse data sets and construct an enterprise knowledge base. And then the other side, we provide user interface that enable the user to be able to ask questions to obtain precise answers. So what are the common challenges and design principles when we build this kind of application? So first of all, precision is not negotiable, right? So let's say I want to ask a very simple question, and you can try it today on ChatGPT, right? Which moderate risk stocks have increased by 20% over the last month? So this is actually what I did in the morning to ask that question, right? So you can see it returned something pretty nice, with a interactive diagram that I can look into the changes over different period of time and tell me root share climbed over 30% over the last month, right? However, if I follow up and ask, how much did the root stock change last month? You can see the diagram is exactly the same, right? And it gives me a different answer. It tells me it declined by 3.26% over the past 1 month, right? So now, obviously, I cannot really trust the answer, right? So the precision is not quite there, and you can tell from the chart itself, right? It's not really increasing by over 20%. The second part, the diagram was taken a few months earlier because I think if you try today, the information even less meaningful, right? If I ask a question, okay, which audience grew by more than 20% in the last month? Remember the first question I asked on my first slide, right? So you tell me, oh, I need a specific data or report related to audience to be able to answer this question, which is a very correct answer, right? Because it doesn't really have information about my audience. That it's the enterprise data only I have. I did not provide it to ChatGPT. So come back to the earlier question we look at, right? So the few issues that we surface here. In my question, I asked which moderate risk, right? So I did not define what I mean by moderate. Which risk is moderate is really organization specific, right? So it's not, there is not a universal definition of moderate. However, it's cite a source which says moderate by, and somehow it draws a conclusion that a moderate by equal to moderate risk, which is actually not true. The second part is, if we look at the conclusion, right, we can see with our own eye, right, the stock did not increase by about 30%. It provided source, but then can I trust it, right? It provided source, but the conclusion is not really correct. So this really reveals a lot of problems, right? Like if I'm in an enterprise user and I'm using this to make a decision, how can I trust the answer I'm getting? So a lot of our work is to be able to provide precise answer that is trustworthy to our users. So overall, as I mentioned before, right, there are a few different declarators that we need to consider. So we need to maintain high precision at all times. We need to support the structured and unstructured data. We need to support expressive and scalable construction of the knowledge base. And the interface needed to be transparent and customizable. So before ChatGPT, before the LLM era, the way we build precision-oriented system is two phases. During the first phase, we do information extraction and entity integration, where we extract structured information from unstructured and semi-structured data source, and then we consolidate all these reference about the same entity together to build an entity-centric view. And now we have a curated knowledge base that comply to some schema that I define in advance based on what kind of question I want to support for different domains. And then we can support customizable, transparent, maintainable enterprise search engine to support answer questions over the knowledge bases. So there's a huge body of work here, so I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them, so I will just give you some sample about the past work. The first challenge is information extraction. It's not a new problem to the audience here, right? However, here I want to point out the complexity we're talking about, right? So the kind of information I need to extract are this kind of table. I want to extract loan information, loan company information. And you can see here, the information is distributed in different places in a huge document containing hundreds of pages. And the information are not clearly defined for extraction, right? So some are semi-structured, some are from this kind of tabular data. To be able to really precisely understand what to extract often also require domain knowledge. To a certain extent, the only reason like my past team was able to do this kind of work was two of my past team members, before they started a PhD, they were also financial analysts. So they understand how to read a financial chart. So then the kind of domain knowledge they have, were able to incorporate it in building of the system. The second example is entity integration. So let's say I want to be able to support people to ask questions about individuals from all these financial reports, right? So I want to say, oh, who is James Diamond, or give me the past employee history of James Diamond. The challenge is the information about this person is distributed across many different documents, And there is no single identifier for me to identify this person, right? So therefore, to be able to integrate, like extract the individual person and integrate them to form an entity-centric view is non-trivial work. And lastly, to be able to support customizable search, we need to think about what are the different elements we can do. One simple obvious option is to support the natural language query. But in some cases, we also need to think about for that particular domain, what kind of interface makes sense so that we can surface it to the user. So overall, the kind of NLP task that we consider can be listed, like you can think about it here, right? At the information extraction time, we're not just extracting from syntactical information, we also do shallow semantic parsing, we do table understanding to enable this more complex information extraction we need to have. So when we do entity integration, we need to do normalization, we need to do matching, and then at the search time, like be able to do normal search, but also re-ranking, rewrite. So overall, we can think about these are the different kind of NLP tasks that we're considering before LMs, right? So we have a lot of rule-based solution. We also have a small language model. So we use the rules a lot, and it also poses a few different challenges. One is expressivity. How can I use rules to specify statements that are complex enough to be able to express all this kind of information structure integration that we need to have? And how do we scale the building of these rules so that we can extract and integrate the billions of records or documents in a cost-efficient manner? And also the usability. How do we support the crafting, maintenance, extension, orchestrating of these rules? So on high level, we're going to take one approach. We define declarative language that allow us to separate what to do from how to do it, right? So we specify a declarative language, we then optimize, use the optimizer to decide the execution plan. So we build two systems. One system is called System T. System T is to support declarative information extraction. So before we have this declarative information extraction system, people were mostly using context-free grammar, and we have shown using this system, we're able to express much more expressive rules and be able to always run these rules with high efficiency. And then we also have system ER that support declarative entity integration that allows to be able to build the entity extraction integration algorithm with high efficiency and effectiveness. So both work was done, over the past couple of decades, and it went into many products, many publications, with multiple awards and so on. But it's all in the past, right? So now the question you may be wondering is, what do we do now, right? The problem remains, but now we have LLM. So what has changed? Of course, one thing changed is I'm doing all the work now in Adobe, right? In the past, it was all in IBM. But on high level, it's the same problem, right? We have different solution now. So let's also look at the problem we were discussing before, right? So we have many NLP tasks. Maybe one simple thing to think about, maybe I can just use end-to-end LLM, right? So, but I will show you it's much more complicated. I think one major change I would say is before we were doing search, right? Even though we are doing search with natural language, it's now conversational. So with the LLM, we're able to build a system that is much more conversational. But in the next few slides, I'm going to dive deeper about what has changed when it comes to answer questions from unstructured and structured data. So how do we answer unstructured data? Remember before we have to do information extraction, and then we construct a knowledge graph, and then we answer questions. However, now we have LLM, right? So what we do now is instead of doing all this offline processing, we do a lot of the work in runtime. Offline, we do chunking and embedding building so that we can better represent the unstructured data in a form that can be easily retrieved at runtime. But we no longer do information extraction and integration at offline time. And as long as we can provide enough context and relevant context to LLM is doing pretty decent job to be able to answer questions using the context retrieve. So this is one major change, right? Like before we have to do information extraction integration, now we mostly focus on the semantic representation. But do we still need information extraction or entity integration? So let's look at another example, right? Now I want to ask a question that it's probably better answered using structured data, right? I ask what is a profile in AEP, and then I say how many do I have? So one potential thing that we can do, in fact, this is something people have done, is to feed all this profile information to LLM and then let LLM answer this question, right? Because LLM can handle long context pretty well. The other choice is we can do extraction. We can extract this profile and then we put in a knowledge base and then we query knowledge base based on a structured data. So if I do this inference with LLM, because I have many profiles, right? So for this particular task, it took about 4 days to get a response and cost a lot of money. Alternative approach is I do what I have done before, right? Extract into knowledge base and then query the knowledge base. So in order to build the knowledge base, it's also kind of different than what we have done before, right? We still need to do information, we still need to do extraction. We need to integrate all the information into one single schema. But then we want to prepare the data so that it becomes more LLM friendly. So we first enrich the customer schema, right? Like in the schema before I have names, now I extended the names with aliases and description so that it's more retrieval friendly. We also have fine-tuned the LLM embedding again to enable retrieval to work better. And then the knowledge base is no longer just relational store. We have both vector database as well as structured database. So I process that we do now on the high level, for simplicity, you can think of it's 4 steps, right? First step, I get a question, the same as before. The second step is I will do some grounding to help LLM understand what I mean by profile and what I mean by California. So through entity linking, it will return to say California is related to attribute profile.state. And with this information, we can give to LLM along with some related example so that we can prompt LLM to generate a SQL from natural language. And in the end, I can execute the SQL, and then I can also ask LLM to provide me some explanation so that we can generate not just the response, but also explain how the response has been obtained. To do this, it essentially requires 2 prompts, right? One is to generate the SQL. The second is to generate explanation. And this takes only a few seconds to get a response and only cost a cent, and it's much faster than the alternative. So I think hopefully by now, right, you're convinced that feeding everything to LLM is not necessarily the solution. So we need the combination of both. Yeah, so this is basically the question we asked before, right? The answer is yes, we still need it. So now if we look at the architecture of query and constructing a query knowledge base, it becomes much more complex. Right. Remember before, I just first step offline, I do information extraction and I do integration. And then here I just do search. But now we really need to think about how the different ways that we can answer questions with both cost and precision in mind. And then let's look at the task, right? What are the tasks? So many of the tasks become irrelevant. So if you look at the list here, some of the tasks remains, but many of the tasks become irrelevant, right? However, there are also new tasks added. Like we need to create embedding, we need to add the context, right? RAG become very critical. And grounding is also very important. I think the opening talk about attribution is one type of grounding, right? Grounding the answer, but we also need to ground the initial question as well. So there's a lot of work still happening. So rules become, you can say pretty much all the time we can start with LLM, but we may also have a small model alternative, and the rules become almost irrelevant. So LLM doing heavy lifting, but one thing we need to do is we need to organize and prepare the data so that it becomes more useful for LLM. So let's look at, put this on timeline, right? So I spent over 14 years in IBM to work on declarative system to build knowledge base to support different kind of enterprise application as you have seen before. And then in the past over 1 year and a half, I was in Adobe, that I was able to build a system within much shorter amount of time, thanks to LLM, right, with a more complex architecture and a more powerful capability. So I think, of course, a lot of experience carries through, right? But this kind of demonstrated the power of LLM, because what was taking years to build before, now pretty much take like months to build. However, the complexity remains. Okay, so I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit more about some of the things I'm doing now in more concrete terms, right? So Adobe has 3 business units: Creative Cloud, Document Cloud, Experience Cloud. I think the first 2 you are probably all familiar with. I work in Experience Cloud, where we deal with a lot of enterprise data. And the kind of work we have done, one is we built the conversational AI system for Adobe Experience Platform, right? So the example I was showing on the first slide was what I built, like I and my team built, and we're able to support the question answering involving both in-house model and public LLM. And the first version GA the last year, but we're still continue building this. The highlight for this year is we have started working on agent like everybody else, right? So we have a multi-agent platform that enable other teams, not just my team, to build agent, as well as our customers to build different kind of agents. One instantiation is a concierge that we built for Adobe Summit, one of the largest Adobe event. I don't, let me see how much time. I have like 5 minutes. Okay, so I want to show you some demo, right? The first one is
Welcome to Summit Concierge, Adobe's B2B brand concierge, seamlessly integrated into the Summit mobile app to make your event experience seamless.
Yeah, this is something we were able to
Right from the
build
start,
in about
dynamic
6
welcome
weeks.
prompts keep you informed, highlighting key sessions and events. These updates refresh twice daily based on guidance from Adobe's global marketing organization. For the first time in an Adobe app, responses are streamed in real time, reducing latency and delivering a faster, smoother experience. Follow-up prompts guide you to explore related topics and discover more about Summit. Responses follow brand guidelines, providing clear event details while using deep links to take you directly to the most relevant pages.
Yeah, so I think one thing you hear about is brand guideline, right? So in enterprise, it's not just about providing precise answer. It's also about providing the answer based on what the GMO team, the branding guideline is saying, right? So how do we design a system that enables this level of customizability is one of the key challenges that we have to overcome.
Whether it's session details, speaker bios, maps, or community pavilion activities, this keeps answers concise while making it easy to access more information when needed.
Yeah, so this is like we do post-processing grounding so that we're not just providing the answer, but we also ground the answer within the context of the app.
Finding information is easy with autocomplete suggestions that help frame your questions.
Yeah, we also did a lot
Welcome to
of
Summit Concierge, Adobe's B2B brand. Finding information is easy with autocomplete suggestions that help frame your questions. Summit Concierge provides personalized schedule details, including your registered sessions and customer meetings, so you always know where to be next.
Yeah, so this about your session information is using, we basically
With enhanced
construct a
AI,
personalized
autocomplete
KV for
deep
individuals.
links, and real-time updates, Summit Concierge makes navigating Summit easier than ever. Just ask away.
Yeah, so here I want to point out a couple of things, right? One is it's not just a question answering, it's a conversational experience, right? You can ask questions, follow-up questions, and we also have been very intentional about, like what's the follow-up suggested question that we should be providing. Even the welcome message is changing during the entire period of the event. Like on the first day, maybe talk about opening speech and so on. On the last day, you're gonna talk about luggage storage and so on. So those are the capabilities we need to provide to the marketer so that they can customize the concept, right? So it's not like about my team building this, but how do we enable other people to be able to build this kind of capability and following brand guidance. Yeah, so we provide a lot of control knobs for people to be able to do that. So this is a brand
I'm
new
a
demo.
marketing specialist at a large outdoor company. I'm planning a new campaign for weekend hiking, and I want to highlight some of my products that customers.
Yeah, the previous one you can think about is like one single agent, right, to some extent. But this one really illustrates our multi-agent capability.
I'm a marketing specialist at a large outdoor company. I'm planning a new campaign for weekend hiking, and I want to highlight some of my products that customers may not have bought yet. Ideally, ones that can be used for both backpackers and day hikers. Let's see how AI Assistant can help me build a personalized promotion. But before I get started, let's analyze some data. I asked AI Assistant to show me the revenue by product subcategory for camping in June. I want the top 20. AI Assistant quickly pulls in the right information from Customer Journey Analytics to show me purchase information for my top products from June. It's a bit of a long list, so I'll ask for AI Assistant to help me narrow this down to the products that can be used for both backpackers and day hikers.
Yeah, so it's a follow-up.
That narrows things down for me. I'll focus on these products when we get into the details of my campaign. So let's get started. Please help me plan an email marketing campaign for the fall. My focus will be to target weekend hiking. I want to experiment with 2 variants. Once I submit this prompt, AI Assistant comes back with a full plan on executing the campaign. Now let's take a minute to unpack what we're seeing here. The first thing I see is AI Assistant reasons to make sure that it's understanding my question and uses that to come up with a complete plan.
Yeah, so you can see the plan on the right-hand side.
The plan has a goal as well as 4 different phases, including creating audiences, setting up the journey, generating new content, and setting up some monitoring and scheduling. Each phase also has certain subtasks and statuses. I realized I missed out on a few details on the audience creation. I'll add some audience specifications, including some of the information from earlier in the conversation. As you can see, it's gone ahead and added a new constraint to my plan regarding the audience size. One last thing before we proceed. I want to remove the monitoring phase from my plan. I think I'll just do that later.
Yeah, so you can revise the plan, right? So you can add more constraints, you can remove some of the steps.
Once again, AI Assistant has quickly adjusted the plan. The updates look great. So let's proceed with the first phase, to build a targeted audience.
Yeah, so this is actually a very important point, right? During the enterprise application, we want the user to be at the driver's seat. So we do not want to say, oh, like the user asked me to do and just automatically execute everything. So at every single step where the user input is critical, we will wait for the user confirmation. We will present what the system plans to do, and then the user can confirm whether this is something the user wants to do.
See, the AI assistant has gone ahead and performed a few steps of this phase, including discovering XTM fields, translating that to an audience definition, and estimating the audience size. The audience size is in the right range for the constraint that I've given it for 10,000. So I'll go ahead with this audience. You can see here on the right that this has gone from in progress to complete. It created the audience, and I can always access it on the audience portal to make any additional changes if needed. And now that phase 1 is complete, I'm guided to the next phase of our plan, to configure and create the email journey. Let's proceed. AI Assistant responds with the specifications of the journey that it recommends I create. As you can see, this is a pretty complex journey, including certain branches for the experimentation, as well as entry and exit criteria. It also shows me the journey specifications and natural language for my review, making these technical details easy for me to understand. It's looking good. Let's go ahead and create the journey. AI Assistant comes back with a fully created journey and shows me the name and the unique ID of the journey that's created. I can make edits from here or go directly into Adobe Journey Optimizer and make edits there. The last phase of this plan is to set up content. I ask AI Assistant, what content variations should I use for my weekend hiking campaign? AI Assistant analyzes past performance of my content and picks the top themes that it thinks will perform well. These look pretty good to me, so I'm going to ask it to generate 2 variants. AI Assistant uses the previous recommendations and the Adobe Firefly models to come up with 2 different content variants to use in my email campaign. Both of these variants feel very on theme for me. I think they could really perform well for my hiking campaign. As you can see now, all 3 phases of my plan are now complete, and I think my work here is done. Thank you, AI Assistant.
So as you can see from this particular demo, again, it's a live demo, right? It's not a Figma design kind of demo. And many of these steps are actually invoking different part of the product. So this is really part of a multi-agent system. I think especially in a complex enterprise scenario, right, where in order to carry out one task, the user, before we have a system like this, the user have to learn to use many different products and go to different places, import, export things to carry out the entire flow. But here, we have one single plan that pieced together all the different product capabilities together. And all the user need to do is really interact with the system in a conversational manner. And this is what my system enabled to do, right? Like my team did not build this individual agent. My team's focus is on the underlying platform that supported this kind of conversational experience, generated the plan, verified the plan, actually executed the plan, and also provide unified conversational experience to our user. So this really scale the kind of building of this kind of system, right? As I was sharing with you earlier, to create a summit concierge, which contain, I think you can, on the high level, you can think about, but we have 2 agents, right? One agent kind of response based on the unstructured data, another agent to provide a response based on structured data, and then have a conversational experience. So that one, because of our platform, we were able to enable the building of the system to GA, to be used at the hands of tens of thousands of people in just 6 weeks. So that was never possible before, right? Like at IBM, in Apple, I have built many different products. Building anything at a production level in just a matter of weeks, right, is only possible now. One is because of LLM, the second is really because we have this platform that enable building of this kind of capabilities and generalizable into supporting different data sources. So that's all I'm going to talk about. Another thing I want to share is that we are hiring. For this year, obviously we don't have an internship left, but we will be starting hiring interns from middle of September. We are also hiring at the full-time at both entry level and experience level. So if you are interested, I will be here. I will also be at the ACL, so feel free to reach out. We are mostly hiring in US, India, and Romania. Yeah, thank you, and I'm ready to take questions.